Good evening, everybody. It's been far too long since I've done a midweek check-in, and in fact, this is the first, or I think the second one of 2021, and it's lovely to be with you. Once again, I want to express our gratitude and thanks to so many of you who have shown us such love in this difficult time. I was writing to the elders today and saying to them that it's felt a little bit like we've been through a tunnel of chaos, and yet in the midst of all of this we've experienced God's peace and God's love, even in the midst of our sadness and of our struggles. But it's good to be with you, and it's a coolish evening, so I've got a cup of coffee, and I hope you will join me with a cup of coffee as we spend just a few moments together. As we reflect, as I reflect on what I want to share with you tonight, it really all came together for me in a phrase that Eugene Peterson coined when he wrote his book on the Psalms of Ascent. And when he tried to summarize the full impact of the Psalms of Ascent, he called it a long obedience in the same direction. That these Psalms, and they're Psalms that are born out of Israel's struggle, out of Israel's difficulties, out of Israel's challenges, that these Psalms reflect all the qualities that are needed for a long obedience in the same direction. And I've been thinking a lot about where people are at the moment. And one of the things that has struck me is that I think many people started the year even subconsciously saying, well, 2020 is done, 2021 is here, and things are going to get better. And of course, what did we get hit with? But the whole of January under level 3 lockdown, and even now, although at least some of the restrictions have been eased, we're still in level 3 and will be for quite some time. And it struck me that one of the things that we're going to have to adjust to is the fact that COVID-19 and the effects and the impacts thereof are going to be with us for a considerable period of time. And maybe we even need to be thinking in terms of not just a couple of months, but maybe even another year or two, or even 3. And when I read a little bit about the impact of the Spanish flu, even on churches, it really is clear there that the impact of a worldwide pandemic is actually so much greater than what one hopes or even thinks about. And so one of the things we're going to have to do is settle in for the long haul, for a long obedience in the same direction. And it struck me, and this was brought to my attention today by somebody who visited our church, in fact, for my dad's memorial service, and he was so taken by the banner that we have in front of the church. And I think many of us have actually even forgotten what it says, but the banner that's in the front of the church is from Esther chapter 4, and it speaks about how Esther had been born for such a time as this, and that you and I are born for such a time as this. And then I overheard Brenda talking to her fellowship group saying, we can either try and live through this moment as though this moment is not important and we just want to get done with it, or we can live in the moment, being God's people in this moment. And I believe that that's really what God calls us to. And so I want to leave this challenge with you. If we look at the road ahead, and many folk are very excited about the vaccines, and while I'm not against the vaccines in any way, I really do believe that the actual rollout is going to be much more complicated than people think, and I think we might discover that the virus has a few surprises in store for us in terms of its ability to mutate, and that will impact the efficacy of the virus, at least of the vaccines. And so we might still be facing the COVID challenge for quite some time. And I think instead of wishing this away, we need to settle in and say, how can we be the people of God in this moment? Instead of wishing it away, let's be the people of God in this moment. But alongside all of those thoughts, and you might be thinking, gosh, this is not good news, but it is good news, because we have a God who walks with people who take a long obedience in the same direction. But I do want to say that if you are finding yourself taking strain, and I think there are many who are, then I want to offer two thoughts to you. The first is to have a look at the sermon series that I preached through January, that dealt with how we face 2021, growing and not shrinking, where I talked about facing adversity, facing fear, facing facts, and embracing service. But if you are taking strain, and if you're struggling, if you're one of those folk who are saying, but God, when are you going to give us a break? When will we see things getting better? And I'm struggling in this time. Then please pick up the phone or pick up WhatsApp and drop me a message. Sometimes just talking about it or just having someone pray with you can make all the difference. So give me a call or phone your elder, but don't struggle on your own. Many people are experiencing sadness and grief and loss in this time, and we shouldn't do that alone. Then a couple of loose thoughts that I want to offer, and the first of those loose thoughts is that one of the things that I've become aware of is that I think there is need for a kind of a Bible study where we grapple with some of the tough issues and some of the things that people are wrestling with. And so I want to try out a different kind of online Bible study. It will use an online platform called Jitsi, which is very similar to Zoom. And in this Bible study, and it'll probably be on a Monday night, and we'll call it something like Monday Night Live or something like that, I want to tackle the kind of questions that people are wrestling with. And I'm even open to do some live Q&A where people can ask questions and I'll tackle them straight off, giving biblical answers to some of the things that we're wrestling with. And if you'd be interested in being part of a Bible study like that, then please drop me a WhatsApp and say, I'm interested in a Monday Night Live Bible study where we kind of grapple with current issues, and where it's not so much a formal programmed Bible study, but one that allows people to ask questions, and I'll interact and offer perspectives from a biblical base on that. So if you're interested, please let me know. Then I want to also just indicate that this year Easter is coming early, and in fact Shrove Tuesday and Ash Wednesday will be in 2 weeks' time, and we want to do something special around that this year. And so Shrove Tuesday we'll look at doing pancakes at the church. Now we can't gather and eat unless we do that picnic style on the lawns outside, or that people can just come past and collect pancakes and you can take them home and eat them. But we'll figure out the details. But if you would be willing to help bake pancakes and drop them off at the church, or bring them so that we can do a pancake picnic evening, then please let me know. And then Ash Wednesday, we're looking at doing something that will extend possibly through the afternoon, and then have a service in the evening. Now the service will be limited to 50 people, but during the afternoon I want to have a space that people can come to, and then I'll be available. There'll be a devotional playing on a loop, and then if folk would like to come forward for prayer and to be anointed with ashes, I'll be available to do that. But please keep that in mind, and we'll give you more details closer to the time. The last announcement or thought that I want to leave with you is that this Sunday I want to tackle an important topic of discipleship, and particularly the importance of parents in the discipleship process, and this idea that one of the most important things that we do with our lives is that when we parent our children, we pass the faith on to them. And I want to play a short excerpt from an interview that I did with Milan Nell for a course that we did in the denomination in October last year. Now Milan Nell is one of the senior ministers of the Dutch Reformed Church. He was a lecturer at Pretoria University and a much loved mentor and teacher and coach and trainer. And he has so much wisdom to offer. And I interviewed him and picked up on a thought that he'd had, that one of the things that we were lacking as a church was this whole idea of discipleship. And then he surprised me by saying that one of the most important aspects of discipleship is parenting. And so here's just a short clip from that interview and what Milan had to say. But that will whet your appetite for what I want to talk about on Sunday.
But let me make 3 remarks briefly. The first confusion that we kind of developed and then lived with it is the distinction between membership and discipleship, which were supposed to be the same. Because you are a disciple of Jesus the Christ, you are a member of the discipling body. It is a different way of looking at it. The second remark is we have failed to help our parents understand that the calling to make disciples is primarily a family calling. Discipleship are made the best within family settings. Whether it's just a father or just a mother, that's not the point. You need relationships to make disciples. So a mom and a dad, and hopefully sometimes still in our broken world, a mom and a dad, can kind of just show how they follow the Christ. What do I mean by that? Then that's my third remark. The third thing we missed is that we thought of discipleship as a follow him concept. Follow Jesus. And we link it up with him calling Matthew, etc. Follow me. But the word for discipleship in the New Testament doesn't mean follow me. That's a totally different concept. It means come, learn from me how to live life the Jesus way. And there's no one that can help me so much like my mom and my dad. On hopefully both of them, but at least one of them. How do Jesus want me to live life? How do you cope with disappointment? How do you cope with success? How do you reckon with God when you have to buy, say my dad has to buy a new car? How do I discern the will of God when I need to buy a car? Or a new house, or move, or whatever the case might be. Dad, how do you reckon with God? Why do we even pray before we eat? It's discipling and discipleship language.
It's such an important point. One of my profound memories as a young man was when my father bought a car for me.
Yeah.
And it was in the days of GST, before that. And it was a private sale. And the person selling the car said to my dad, look, I'll make an invoice out for 5,000 Rand. I know you're going to pay me 15,000 Rand, but I'll make the invoice out for 5,000 and you'll pay less GST. And my dad looked at him and said, no, please make the invoice out for the correct amount.
You've made my point.
And, you know, and it's a memory that
Absolutely.
stays with me.
How does my dad reckon with God in the decisions of his life? You can learn it from your pastor and your Sunday school teacher, that they are very much significant people in your life. They are called in youth ministry. But the most significant disciple-making persons in our lives are supposed to be the people who baptized us. They have to help us unfold this learning from Jesus.
Wow. I hope you found that challenging and exciting and meaningful. And if you're a parent and maybe the first feeling that you felt was guilt, saying, gosh, I'm not anywhere near doing all those things, please don't run away. That's exactly why we need to talk about this and to provide tools and skills and ways that we can do this better. And so join us on Sunday, where I'll be talking about how families can grow in faith together. Now, to round off, because it's already been quite a long check-in, I just want to end with a few verses from Psalm 130. And you might remember that I preached on Psalm 130 in February, just a week before all the coronavirus things started to get really, really serious here in South Africa. And in many ways, this psalm paved the way for us. Psalm 130, verses 5 and 6. I wait for the Lord. My whole being waits. And in his word, I put my hope. I wait for the Lord. More than watchmen wait for the morning. More than watchmen wait for the morning. O Israel, put your hope in the Lord. For with the Lord is unfailing love, and with him is full redemption. And it's my prayer that as we go through this long obedience in the same direction, that we will wait for the Lord like the watchman waits for the morning. And so, love and peace and grace to you. God be with you, and I'll see you on Sunday. And let's remember that it's a communion service. God be with you, and God bless you. Go in peace, in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, now and forevermore. Amen.